Okay, in this video we're going to talk a little bit about modeling moving charges. So up till now what we've done is we've talked about static charges, charges that are stuck at locations, and we're looking at the electric field associated with those charges and so forth. But now what we're going to do is we're going to think about, well, what happens when charges move around a little bit? So we'll go back to an example that we had earlier where you had two plates, which we call the capacitor. One of those plates was positively charged. So we'll make the upper plate positively charged, and the lower plate was negatively charged. And we've done a lot of work with these plates. We've talked about the electric field between them. We've talked about the electric potential between them. We've talked about how to get charge on them and so forth. But now what we're going to do is we're actually going to connect these two plates that are separated by a very thin piece of wire. Okay? And what your intuition probably suggests is that, eventually these two plates come to have the same amount of charge. And in this case, because the plates have the same amount of charge but different signs, they become neutral. And that's exactly what happens. And the process by which that occurs is essentially the electrons that are sitting in this lower plate start to move around. They start to feel an attraction to these to the upper plate, but they have a place to now be able to move in order to get closer to those positive charges, namely that little piece of wire that we have. So they actually are going to travel up that piece of wire. And at first, that happens very, very quickly because there's lots and lots of charge. But over time, those little electrons start to neutralize this positively charged plate, and they leave behind positively charged cores on the lower plate. And so as this occurs over time, there's a slower movement of the electrons onto the upper plate. And as this continues to happen, it happens more and more slowly, but eventually what we're left with is two plates that are connected by a wire where there's no net motion of the electrons between the two plates. That is, we have sufficiently sort of neutralized both of the plates. Okay? So the idea behind this is that because these electrons are free to move, because the plates and the wire are made out of metal, they can sort of rush across the gap here through the wire, and then as time goes on, they sort of more slowly do so, right? They do so with less vigor, if you will. And eventually, you have these neutral plates where the electrons are distributed across the upper plate and the lower plate such that they are overlapping with these positively charged atomic cores. And it's this process, the process of the movement of electrons from one area to another, is what we're going to start modeling in the next few videos.